Hey everyone, this is Andy Melbuff, and in this video we're going to take a look at some basic uses of the geometry component for Desmos activities. To begin with, I want to show you an example of what a geometry component looks like inside of a Desmos activity slide. So I am in preview mode here. This is what the students would see, and what I'm kind of hovering over with my mouse here is a note in which I'm asking students a question. Here's their response box, which is a free response type of component. And then over here on the left, we have a geometry component. And I've already set this geometry component up to show a triangle along with the measure of angle A being shown as I'm pointing to right here. This geometry component for students is interactive. In other words, as they move point C, you can see angle A changing dynamically, and the same thing with point B. And so we could use this type of situation to ask kids to visualize what a 120-degree angle inside of a triangle looks like, and then we can use this as some visual representation to help prompt them to answer this particular question. Coming out of preview mode, here's what the component here looks like. I have this on the left-hand side of my screen, and as you can see here inside of the canvas, or on the canvas I should say, is a triangle with 3 points labeled. You'll notice that point B and point C have large circles around them. These indicate that they are movable points, but point A does not. And I'm going to show you how to lock in that point A in just a few moments. Below this triangle, you'll see the different options students have for working with whatever's on the canvas. Now, we're just using this as an example to give them some visual representation, but students can also do their own creating on the canvas. There are more tools available here, so there can be constructions done with this particular component, and students can also transform using reflections, translations, rotations, dilations, etc. for images that are already created on the canvas. Going to screen number 3 here, and I'm again back in preview mode, so this is again what the students would see. Here's another visual representation for students where there's a movable point here, point A, and you can see the central angle in the middle of the circle changing dynamically, and so we can use this to allow students to get visual representation of what central angle will allow us to have two arcs that are equal in length. So on my screen number 4, we're going to take a look at how we build something like this. So I've pretty much got a blank canvas here. All I have in here is a title for the slide in which we're going to build a geometry component and possibly put a question and a response box in. Over here on the left-hand side are my standard components, and I'm going to choose the geometry component. And here's the canvas I mentioned earlier, and here are the tools available. Now, if this component is the only one on the slide, these tools will show up here left of the canvas, and the canvas is fairly large. If we add a note component for a question, the canvas gets a little bit smaller and we can add more components over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a free response component, and let's talk about how we can build some items in here for students to manipulate on this canvas. I want to start with something fairly easy, so I want to start with a polygon. So I'm going to choose this polygon tool down here, and when we use this component, we're kind of prompted with instructions. So basically, if you follow along with these instructions, to create this polygon, I'm going to select a point, another point, and as I keep going, you can see right here I've created a triangle. And if I want to stop right there with that triangle, I'll come back over and make my last point where I started, but I want to go ahead and make this a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and make a quadrilateral out of this, and then I'll close it out. And so you see a little check mark indicating we've correctly created this polygon, but I'm still using the polygon tool, so I could create another one over here if I wanted. If I don't want to create anything else, I'm just going to click the back button, and I'm back at this standard menu right here, and then I can choose to do some things with this polygon. For example, we might want to label the vertices. So I can click on any individual vertex point and I can add a label, and you'll see here I'm highlighting A. This generally, the default is we start with the letter A and progress through the alphabet that way. but you could certainly make this label say anything you wanted. And we can also change colors for the label and the point. So here I've made point A orange, and I can do the same with other points. So I'm going to go ahead and just do this. I'm going to click label. And now I've got quadrilateral ABCD. And what we can do are several other things then after we've done our labeling. For example, you saw in the previous two examples, I had angle measures in here. Well, if I want to create angle measures, I'm going to go back to my construct menu, or I'll just click back on the canvas to get back to my construct menu here. There's an angle tool. And basically, if I want to measure angle A is the result of going from B to A to D. So I'm creating 3 points here with this angle, making sure A is in the middle. And now A is right at this point 45 degrees. And I can continue with this process to get my other angle measures in there. I'm still using the angle tool. And so if I'm done now, I'm going to click back and I want to preview this. I want to see what I'm looking at. So here you can see students can manipulate these various points, and the angle measures change dynamically as they move them. So the next thing might be, do we want to lock in any of those points and make them immovable? We can certainly do that. For example, if I wanted point A to be locked in and not movable, I'll select point A. I've already labeled it here on the bottom left. I've already colored it orange, but if I scroll down a little bit further at the bottom of this box, I can lock it as a free point. I can lock that free point, meaning it will not move. And so in preview mode, the students will see this point and it's immovable. It's a smaller circle than this orange one here. These three are still movable, but point A is not. So point A is kind of off the edge of the screen, so I'm going to basically move it in a little bit. I'm going to select point A, I'm going to unlock it, and I'm going to move it back over here to the left before I lock it again. So I can create movable and immovable points for polygons, and I can also measure side lengths. For example, side BC here, I can click on the segment that forms that side BC, and I can check the label box. Now you'll notice the word length here is in curly brackets. That means the default label for a segment is its length. And I can change that color if I wish. So I'm going to change this to green so it stands out. And here's what the students would see. The length of segment BC right now is 5.15. And as students manipulate the movable points here, this changes in real time. Point A is still locked, but the other 3 points are movable. So we can add segment lengths in here as well as angle measures. The last thing we're going to explore in this introductory video is some work with circles. So I've already kind of populated this screen with some of the components we want to use. I put in a note component here where we can give directions to students or ask a question. I've also added a free response component here. This can be, math response or multiple choice, whatever you'd like. And then over here I have my geometry component, which right now has a blank canvas. So a couple of things I can do to create a circle. One thing I can do is just click the circle tool right here, select a center point, and then I'll move out a certain distance, which would be the radius here. Now, in doing so, I've created this circle, and in preview mode, students can change the size of the circle by moving either of these points. Now, if we wanted to add some other pieces to a circle that we normally associate when discussing these concepts, we might want to put in a radius. So I could then select the segment tool, and the segment tool, basically you need a beginning point and an ending point. So I'll click the center of the point to the outside here, and now I've got a segment. And again, this circle is able to be manipulated by students either by moving either of those points. This segment that I just clicked on can be labeled with a length, and I could change the color if I wished. And if I want to maybe take away some other options, I can maybe lock in one of those points. For example, this center point, I can click on it. I can label it, and maybe I want to label it C instead of A, and I can scroll down a little bit further to the very bottom of this component and lock it. And now students can manipulate this circle in this way by moving around this particular point, which is unlabeled, but C is locked. It is not movable, and you can see the length of the radius changes dynamically with all of the students' interactions there. So this is just a quick tutorial on how to get started with using some of the very basic geometry component features. There are many more available that I'll put in some other videos, but this will at least get you started exploring. Thanks.